Welcome to your sleep story. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Whatever this day was, however long it felt, however much it carried, it is behind you now, completely behind you. You made it through, and that is everything. So let's begin. Before I take you anywhere tonight, I want to count you down from 10 to 1. And as I count, I want you to allow yourself to sink just a little deeper into wherever you are right now. Feel the weight of your body. Feel what is beneath you, holding you. And with each number, just let go a little more. 10. Allow your eyes to close. Gently, completely. There is nothing you need to see right now. 9. Feel your shoulders and let them drop as far as they want to go. 8. A slow breath in through the nose. 7. And all the way out. 6. Your hands. Feel them opening. Whatever you've been holding today, you can put it down now. 5. Your jaw is soft. Your face is soft. 4. Your legs are heavy, warm. 3. You're drifting, not asleep yet, but moving that way. 2. The day is behind you, completely and entirely behind you. 1. And now, tonight's sleep story, the relaxation. Before we go anywhere, I want to stay here with you for a moment. Just here, just now, because this moment, this exact moment right now, where you are lying in the quiet, deserves a little attention, a little kindness. Take a breath in for me, from the very bottom of the belly. Good, and let it go. And as you breathe out, I want you to imagine that everything you were carrying today, every worry, every unfinished thought, every heavy thing is just leaving with that breath, just drifting away. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to be anything other than exactly what you are right now. A person who deserves rest. A person who deserves sleep. Because you do. You really do. Whatever happened today, however hard it felt, however much it carried, you made it through. You are here. And that is enough. That is more than enough. You are safe. And you are here. Bring your awareness gently to your feet now. Just notice them and allow them to soften. The toes uncurling, the arches releasing. All the small held tension of the day simply letting go. Let that softness travel upward, through the calves, through the knees, the thighs. All of it warm, all of it heavy, all of it resting now. Your lower back, your hips. Allow yourself to feel the surface beneath you taking your weight completely, fully. You don't have to hold yourself up anymore. The earth has you. The old city has you. The belly soft. The chest soft. The heart beating steadily as it always has, as it always will. Your shoulders dropping, your arms heavy and warm, your hands open and still, the neck long and loose, and your face, let the jaw go. Let the forehead smooth. Let the eyes be completely still behind their lids. There you are, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, completely soft, completely warm, completely at rest. You've done beautifully. Now, let me take you somewhere the lamplight falls warm and amber on a workbench covered in linden wood shavings, and finished puppets hang from their strings above a tiny window that overlooks a cobbled Prague lane. And an old man with a knife and a patience deeper than the stones of this city is carving, slowly, a new face for something that does not yet know what it will be. Come with me. The lane. Imagine a lane in Prague, not the wide, tourist-thronged streets of the old town square or the Charles Bridge approaches. Though those are only a few minutes' walk from here, their constant hum of voices and footsteps and cameras audible in the right stillness, even at this evening hour. Something narrower, a lane that runs between two rows of old buildings, their facades leaning slightly toward each other across the cobblestones, as though, across the centuries, they have been gradually drawn together by some slow gravitational fondness. The gap between them wide enough for perhaps 3 people walking abreast, but no wider. The buildings are old, medieval in their foundation and their basic mass, though their facades carry the accumulated adjustments of every intervening century: Gothic stonework at street level, Baroque plasterwork on the upper floors, a scattering of Art Nouveau detailing above some of the window frames added by someone who, in the early 20th century, could not resist adding one final layer to this building's already elaborately palimpsest exterior. The cobblestones underfoot, old, very old, worn smooth in the complex, irregular way that only centuries of feet can produce. Not the uniform smoothness of polished stone, but something more varied. Each cobble slightly different from its neighbors in the exact degree of its wearing, creating a surface that is beautiful and slightly difficult to walk on, that demands a small but real degree of attentiveness from anyone who does not know it well. The lamplight in this lane comes from a single old iron bracket lamp above the entrance to the building on the left. Its light, warm amber against the cool blue-gray of the evening stone, and from one small window, slightly above street level, in the building on the right, a different light, warmer, more directed, the particular, focused, self-contained light of a workshop that is still, at this hour, in full and quiet operation. You stop beneath the window. You look up through the glass shelves and hanging shapes and the warm pool of lamplight on a wooden workbench, and bent over it, a figure at work. You find the door, a wooden door set into the stone facade, its surface dark with age and the accumulated patina of many hands. A brass handle, worn to a smooth, soft gold, where generations of fingers have gripped and turned it. Above the door, a small carved wooden sign, the kind that does not rely on words at all, simply on image. A single puppet figure, jointed, hanging from a single string, its arms slightly extended, its carved wooden face turned upward as though looking at the sign itself. You push the door open. The step down into the workshop is deeper than expected. The building's floor sits below street level, the lane having been gradually raised over the centuries by the accumulated resurfacing of the cobblestones above. The workshop itself having sunk relative to the street by perhaps 30 centimeters across the several hundred years of its existence. This small descent, stepping down into the workshop, feels significant in a way that exceeds its modest physical dimension. You are entering something older than the lane outside, something that has been here in one form or another for a very long time. The first breath, the smell of the workshop, finds you before your eyes have fully adjusted to its particular quality of light. Wood shavings first, fresh linden shavings, specifically the light, slightly sweet, faintly medicinal smell of freshly cut tilia wood, the traditional material for Central European puppet carving, preferred for its softness under the knife, its fine, even grain, its ability to hold carved detail with a crispness that harder woods sometimes resist. The shavings lie in small, curling piles around the base of the workbench, pale and fragrant. The particular sweet smell of recently cut linden, unlike any other wood smell, closer to honey than to the resinous, sharper scents of pine or cedar. Beneath the linden shavings, oil paint, old oil paint, applied over many years to many figures, its smell part fresh and part historical. The workshop having absorbed decades of this smell, until it lives now in the walls themselves, in the old wooden shelves, in the cracks between the ancient floor tiles, and beneath both, something older still, hide glue perhaps, warming gently somewhere nearby. The traditional woodworker's adhesive, made from animal collagen, used for centuries in this and every other craft workshop where wood joints need a strong, reversible bond. Its smell pungent and slightly animal, but somehow entirely at home in this particular space, where the smell of worked materials has been accumulating, layer by layer, for generations, and threading through all of this, barely detectable, but present, unmistakable to anyone who knows what to look for, the faintest smell of sawdust and old lacquer from the shelves, and the finished puppets hanging from their strings above, each one its own small reservoir of the exact materials from which it was made, gently releasing their chemistry into the workshop's warm, enclosed air. You breathe it all in. Your eyes adjust. You say, the workshop, the room is not large, perhaps 5 meters by 4, its ceiling low, its walls stone, its floor the same old tile that Elisabetta's Florence studio might recognize, worn smooth by generations of standing feet. The glaze gone from the high traffic paths between the door, the workbench, the shelves. The shelves, they cover every wall from floor to ceiling, and on them, puppets, not neatly arranged, not for display exactly, though many of them are exquisitely beautiful, arranged the way a working collection is arranged, by proximity, by project, by whatever logic the person who put them there was following on the particular day they were placed. A logic that has, across many years of additions and adjustments, created a dense, complex, entirely organic arrangement that only the person who has built it over those same many years could navigate without confusion. Every puppet on these shelves was made here, or repaired here, or is waiting here for some future attention that has not yet arrived. Marionettes, the jointed, string-controlled figures that Czech puppet tradition has carried forward with particular care and distinction for several centuries. Their heads carved in linden wood, their bodies jointed at hip and knee and elbow, and shoulder with careful wooden or leather hinges, their strings attached at the precise points that allow the most natural, most expressive movement when worked by a skilled puppeteer, and among them, figures from the older theatrical traditions, kings and devils and knights, and the characters of the old Czech puppet comedy, characters whose basic types have been performed for generations by families of traveling puppeteers who once carried their theaters and their figures on wagons through the villages and market towns of Bohemia, performing the same essential repertoire of stories, adapted, expanded, inflected differently from generation to generation, but continuous in their essential theatrical DNA. Since at least the 17th century, at the center of this whole dense, inhabited world of wooden figures, the workbench, and behind it, the puppet maker, Vaclav. He is 79 years old. His name is Vaclav. He has worked at this bench, in this workshop, in this exact building, for 54 years. Since he was a young man of 25, recently trained as a woodcarver in the formal apprenticeship system that still, in the early years of his career, provided at least some structured pathway into the country's traditional craft trades, even if the political climate of those particular decades created its own particular, additional complications for anyone whose work carried a cultural dimension as pronounced as puppet making's. He learned the craft's technical foundation from his own teacher, an older man named Jaroslav, who had himself inherited the workshop from his own teacher. The chain of transmission of tools and techniques, and the particular understanding of linden wood's particular qualities under particular tools, running back through this same small below street level space for at least 4 documented generations, and in all probability, considerably longer. He learned the puppet characters from the old plays themselves, reading and rereading the printed versions of the traditional repertoire that Jaroslav kept on a high shelf, learning their theatrical logic and their comic timing, and the precise qualities a specific character's face needed to project in performance. The devil's knowing sneer, the king's pompous dignity, the clever servant's quick, mobile expressiveness, understanding from his teacher's patient and somewhat exacting instruction that a puppet's carved face is not a portrait but a theatrical instrument, and that the carver's job is to make that instrument as responsive as possible to the puppeteer's art. He is carving now, in the workshop's warm lamp glow, a new face. It sits clamped gently in a small wooden vise on the workbench before him, roughly blocked out from a piece of dried linden wood. Its general features beginning to emerge from the material, but not yet specified, not yet committed to any particular character or expression. Still in that particular, interesting intermediate state where the wood is becoming something human without yet being any particular human thing. The carving, watch his hands. This is worth your full attention. Even at this late hour, even in this warm lamplight that is already doing something to the quality of your wakefulness. The knife in his right hand is small, smaller than you might expect, not the large, dramatic carving knives of furniture making or timber framing, but a short-bladed tool, perhaps 8 centimeters of blade from handle to tip, its edge kept to a sharpness that can split a human hair lengthwise, as sharp as any surgical instrument, sharper perhaps, because a puppet carver's knife must be able to take a single, smooth, controlled shaving from a curved surface without tearing, without catching, without any of the small hesitations that a slightly less than perfectly sharp edge inevitably introduces. The left hand holds the work, not the vise. The vise holds the piece while he works on some aspects of it. But much of the finest work happens with the piece held freely in the left hand, Vaclav's thumb acting as a moving backstop, his fingers shaping the angle and resistance the work presents to the cutting edge with a precision that 49 years of daily practice have refined into something that looks, from outside, almost effortless. It is not effortless. It is the product of approximately 49 years of not being effortless. The knife moves. A thin shaving of linden falls to the bench surface. Another, the curve of a cheekbone deepens, very slightly, toward the form it will eventually become. He stops. He lifts the piece from the vise. He holds it at arm's length, turning it slowly in the lamplight, looking at it with the particular quality of attention that this work demands. Not the rapid, comprehensive glance of someone assessing a finished thing, but the slower, more analytical looking of someone reading a work in progress, identifying what the next cut should address. He puts it back in the vise. The knife moves again. The old plays, on the high shelf where Jaroslav once kept them, and where Vaclav has kept them ever since, the old plays, not famous literary works, not the kind of texts that appear in academic syllabuses or national archives, though some of them have, across recent decades, attracted the attention of folklorists and theater historians interested in exactly this kind of popular, transmitted, oral-adjacent theatrical tradition. These are working documents, the accumulated printed and hand-copied texts of the traditional Czech puppet repertoire, dog-eared and annotated, and in some places almost illegible from handling. The pages soft, with decades of being opened and consulted, and set down carelessly, and picked up again. The character of Kashberg, the Czech puppet comedy's primary trickster figure, the sharp-tongued, resourceful, irrepressible common man, outwits nobles and devils, alike with cheerful, irreverent intelligence. Appears in almost every one of these texts in some form. The character so deeply embedded in Czech theatrical culture that his name has become, in the language itself, a kind of common noun for any mischievous, quick-witted rascal. Vaclav has made many Kashberg puppets across his 54 years, each one slightly different from the last. The interpretation of this endlessly familiar character, evolving almost imperceptibly across the decades, the accumulated experience of having carved this particular face so many times, producing, gradually, a version of the expression that Vaclav has come to think of, privately, as simply the correct one, not the only possible Kashberg, certainly, but the one that contains everything a Kashberg's face needs to contain. He is not making a Kashberg tonight. The face currently in the vice is something different, a character from one of the older plays, less frequently performed now than in earlier decades, whose face requires a more ambiguous expression, not comic, not tragic exactly, something in between, a face that can carry both without being committed to either, the kind of face that only experienced carvers attempt, because getting it wrong produces something unsettling rather than something movingly ambivalent. He is not yet certain he is getting it right. He will know eventually. He always does. The history of Czech puppet theater. Let me tell you something about how this tradition came to be, because it carries a depth and a specificity that makes it one of the more remarkable cultural inheritances in all of Central European theatrical history. Puppet theater of various kinds existed across Europe throughout the medieval period. Shadow puppets, rod puppets, glove puppets, each with their own regional traditions and their own characteristic repertoires. But the particular form of marionette theater that took root in Bohemia and that Vaclav's work today connects back to, developed its most characteristic form in the 17th and 18th centuries, when traveling German and Austrian puppet companies began performing across what is now the Czech Republic. Their repertoires gradually adopted and adapted by local Czech performers, who eventually developed a distinctly Czech theatrical tradition from these international roots. What makes the Czech tradition particularly remarkable in the historical record is the role it played during the late 18th and 19th centuries in the preservation and promotion of the Czech language itself. At a time when Germanization under Habsburg rule had reduced Czech to a language spoken primarily by the rural and working populations, without much presence in formal cultural or educational institutions. The puppet theaters, traveling wagons carrying their carved figures through villages, performing in Czech for Czech-speaking rural audiences, maintaining and transmitting Czech folk stories and Czech theatrical humor, became, almost accidentally, important vehicles for keeping the language and its associated cultural identity alive and present in the popular imagination during exactly the period when more formal, prestigious cultural institutions were operating primarily in German. The puppets, in other words, helped keep check being check. This is not a small thing, and Vaclav knows it, carries it, in the quiet, understated way of someone who has spent a working lifetime in intimate contact with this specific cultural inheritance, not as a political statement or a patriotic gesture, but as a simple, embodied fact about the craft he was taught and the tradition he was taught it within, and why both of those things matter in ways that extend considerably beyond the making of any individual figure. The tools beside the knife in Vaclav's right hand, the workshop contains a whole vocabulary of other cutting and shaping tools, each one with its own specific purpose. Gouges of various widths and sweeps, their handles worn to the particular shape of Vaclav's own grip, their cutting edges maintained to the same extraordinary sharpness as the knife, a small, shallow chisel for the finest surface details, the lines around an eye, the crease of a specific smile, the particular shadow beneath a cheekbone that separates a face that reads as living from a face that merely looks like a face, a bent-bladed tool for reaching into concavities, the inside of an eye socket, the undercut above an upper lip that straight blades cannot address without endangering the surrounding material, several rasps and files used in rougher stages of the work when bulk removal is needed before refinement can begin, their surfaces now clogged with the fine, pale dust of linden wood, and on a separate small tray, the painting materials, the jars of oil paint in their limited but carefully selected palette, the fine brushes whose tips Vaclav maintains with a precision that would not be out of place in Elisabetta's own studio, the medium for thinning and glazing that allows thin layers of color to build up gradually into the complex, translucent depth that gives a well-finished puppet face its particular quality of almost life. Each tool is maintained with the same patient, regular attention that Pieter gives his bell mechanism, that Tamaz gives his lantern, that Aino gives his sauna. Oiled handles, sharp edges, each tool in its accustomed place. The workshop, in this respect, is a kind of argument made entirely through its own organization, for the idea that a craftsperson's relationship with their instruments is itself a form of respect for the work, for the materials, and for the long chain of makers who used similar instruments in similar workshops across the centuries that produced this particular tradition. The PUPPTS on the shelves. A closer look. Let me take you around the workshop shelves, because each section holds its own small world. The section nearest the door holds finished puppets awaiting collection, works commissioned by various clients, theatrical companies among them, but also private collectors and occasional museums adding to their holdings of traditional Czech work. These are Vaclav's most recent completed figures, their surfaces still carrying a freshness, a particularity of surface that the older figures elsewhere on the shelves have long since exchanged for the slightly different quality that age and handling gradually bestow, moving further along the wall. A section of older work, pieces Vaclav made in his earlier decades, returned to the workshop for repair, or simply held here because the original commissioners no longer exist or can no longer be located. The faces in this section are noticeably different from his current work. Not worse, not better exactly, but different in their handling. The carving confidence and the painting vocabulary of a man in his 30s and 40s, visibly distinct from the work of the man in his 70s, bending over the bench tonight. He finds, looking at these older pieces occasionally, both satisfaction and something more complicated, the recognition of a certain energy in the earlier work that has been traded across the decades for a different quality, a slower, more considered depth that he values more in the abstract. But that does not entirely replace what the earlier work had. He has accepted this trade as simply the natural consequence of time. The same trade that every craftsperson who works long enough eventually makes, and eventually makes their peace with. And in the farthest corner, on the highest shelves where the light barely reaches, a small selection of the oldest pieces in the workshop, figures that predate Vaclav's own tenure, that were Jaroslav's before they were his, and perhaps another teacher's before that. These oldest figures carry a different quality from everything else in the workshop, not simply age, something harder to name, the settled, unhurried authority of things that have outlasted every anxiety about whether they were worth making in the first place, that have moved so far past the moment of their creation that they exist now simply as themselves, in a way that newer things cannot quite yet manage. Vaclav rarely touches these. He simply keeps them. They keep the workshop in their own quiet way in return. The strings on a small peg board near the workbench, a collection of the bridge assemblies, the wooden crosspieces from which the puppets controlling strings are suspended. Each bridge is made from the same linden wood as the puppets themselves, fitted with small hooks or notches from which the individual strings are attached. A typical marionette requires strings running to the head, the back, the hands, and the knees. At minimum, more complex figures, capable of more precise and nuanced movement, sometimes require additional strings to the individual fingers, the eyelids, the corners of the mouth. These additional strings represent the difference between a puppet that moves and a puppet that seems, under a skilled operator's hands, to breathe. Vaclav makes the bridge assemblies himself, exactly as he makes everything else. Slowly, precisely, testing the balance point of each assembly by suspending it from a single hook and watching how the strings settle, adjusting the attachment points until the suspended figure hangs in exactly the natural, relaxed posture that will make all subsequent movement most responsive and most convincing. He is, in this sense, not only a maker of faces and bodies, but a kind of engineer of expression, his understanding of how strings and joints and balance points interact to create the illusion of life as rigorous and as accumulated as any mechanical engineer's understanding of the systems they work with, and considerably less reducible to formal equations. The sound of the workshop, if you were to close your eyes right now in this small below street level room, this is what you would hear. The knife, the barely audible sound of a sharp blade removing a thin shaving of linden wood. Not quite a scrape, not quite a slice, something between. A sound so soft that it would be entirely inaudible beneath almost any other ambient noise. Audible here only because the workshop is otherwise so quiet. The occasional soft knock of a tool being set down on the workbench, the creak of Vaclav's chair, very occasionally as he shifts position, and from outside, above the lane, the cobblestones transmitting very faintly the footsteps of whoever passes, tourists mostly at this hour, the lane being near enough to the old town's main attractions to carry a certain amount of evening foot traffic even at this hour, though considerably less than the streets nearer the square. Occasionally a voice, muffled by the glass and the stone, passing and receding, the distant, barely audible sound of the river, the Vltava, only a few streets west of this lane. Its presence in the city's acoustic atmosphere, a constant low undercurrent, barely perceptible, but present for anyone whose ears have learned to find it beneath the city's other sounds, and from the puppets themselves, in the draft that occasionally moves through the workshop when the outside door is opened and closed, a very soft, very faint stirring of strings, not movement exactly, simply the suggestion of it, the puppets shifting infinitesimally in whatever current of air passes through, their strings lifting and settling, their jointed arms and legs responding with the smallest possible gesture to the smallest possible disturbance, as if they are breathing very quietly the evening's progress. Vaclav has been working since mid-afternoon. This is his usual pattern in the slower evening hours of his working life. Mornings for the more demanding business of commissions and correspondence, and the occasional visitor. Afternoons and evenings for the actual bench work, which he has always found most natural in the long, quiet, increasingly lamplit hours that follow the middle of the day. He is making good progress on the ambiguous face. It has found, over the past 2 hours of patient work, something closer to the expression he has been searching for, not quite there, not yet, but close enough that he can see now where the remaining work needs to go. The left eye wants a different depth of socket than the right, not dramatically, but perceptibly, a small asymmetry that will make the face read as more alive, more individual, more subject to the specific kind of melancholic irony the character requires. The upper lip needs its center raised, very slightly. Again, not dramatically, simply enough to suggest a habitual, slightly skeptical restraint at the mouth center, even as the corners are free to travel in whatever direction the performance demands. Small things, very small, but in a puppet's face, which must communicate across theatrical distance through the additional remove of strings and the puppeteer's own mediating intelligence. These small things are, in fact, everything. The right thing, exactly this, and not something approximately similar, but slightly wrong. This exactness is what 54 years of practice has taught him to find and to insist upon. What puppet making, TACHES, Vaclav has thought across 54 years of this particular, exacting, deeply particular craft. About what making puppets has taught him. It has taught him, first, something about the relationship between constraint and expression. A puppet is, by definition, a constrained object. It is carved from wood, jointed at fixed points, suspended from strings at specific locations, subject to the laws of gravity and the limits of the puppeteer's own manual dexterity. And yet, within all of these constraints, the experienced puppet maker can produce a face so expressive, a figure so fluid in its movement under skilled hands, that audiences who know perfectly well they are watching a wooden object will nonetheless find themselves responding to it as though to a living being. This apparent paradox that the most severe, most inescapable physical constraints, properly understood and worked within, can produce not imprisonment, but extraordinary freedom of expression, is one of the most important things puppet making has ever taught Vaclav, and one that he has applied in his own quiet way, rather more broadly than to the craft itself. The puppet also teaches something about collaboration between the maker and the eventual performer. Every figure Vaclav makes is, in a sense, incomplete. It has been given by his hands everything it needs to express whatever it will eventually express, but it waits in its present state on the shelf or in the hands of a new owner for the additional intelligence and skill of the puppeteer who will eventually give it its particular, specific voice. This incompleteness is not a failure or a limitation. It is the whole point. He has always found this requirement of collaboration, this inherent openness of the finished puppet to whatever the puppeteer will bring to it. One of the most interesting aspects of his work, making something that is fully made in one sense, and yet still, in another essential sense, waiting to become what it will become in the hands of someone else entirely. The grandfather's figure. There is one puppet in the workshop that Vaclav did not make. It sits on its own small shelf, slightly apart from the others, in the corner of the workshop, nearest the workbench, where he can see it easily from his working position. It was made by Jaroslav, his teacher, not a character from the traditional repertoire, not a commissioned figure, simply an old man's face, carved in linden wood, painted in the quiet, restrained palette that Jaroslav preferred across his later career. the expression one of mild, slightly amused philosophical resignation. The face, Vaclav has always privately believed, of someone who has thought carefully about the world and found it more interesting than troubling, more comic than tragic, more worth continuing to observe than to pass final judgment upon. Jaroslav gave it to Vaclav near the end of his teaching, without much ceremony, with the simple statement that Vaclav should have it, because he was the one who would know what to do with it. Vaclav has not performed with it. He has not sold it, though several collectors have expressed interest over the years. He has simply kept it on its small shelf, where he can see it from the bench. He does not often think about it consciously, any more than Don Roberto consciously thinks about the mountains while eating his simple supper, any more than Joseph consciously thinks about the river while checking his vent holes. But it is there, as it has been there for nearly 40 years. And knowing it is there, knowing that face is visible from the bench, looking back at him from its small shelf with its expression of mild, amused philosophical resignation, has been, across those 4 decades, a consistent, quiet, entirely reliable source of the particular kind of comfort that comes only from the presence of someone or something that has already passed through everything you are currently going through and found it manageable. The face, NEARS completion. The left eye's socket is right now. The upper lip has found its correct, subtle restraint. Vaclav sets down the fine chisel and picks up the knife again, making 2 or 3 final, very small adjustments to the transition between the cheekbone's plane and the hollow beneath it, the most technically demanding area of any face, where the surface changes direction most abruptly, and where the carving must therefore be most precisely controlled to avoid the common trap of producing a face that looks like a carved wooden face rather than like a face. He sets down the knife. He takes up the piece in both hands, lifting it into the direct beam of the lamp, turning it slowly, looking at it from every angle, from directly ahead, from slightly below, the angle at which an audience typically sees a marionette in performance. From each side, from above, he puts it down. He picks up a very fine riffler, a small, curved file, used now not for removing significant material, but for smoothing a single remaining slight roughness in the left temple, and draws it across the surface once, twice, 3 times. He sets it down. He picks up the piece again. He looks at it. His expression, which has been, across this whole evening, one of patient concentration without any obvious outward sign of satisfaction or dissatisfaction, changes very slightly, not dramatically, simply a small settling. Something that was searching has found what it was searching for. The face is right, not finished. It still needs its eyes painted, its lips given their color, its surface given the thin, careful lacquer coat that protects the painted surface and gives it its particular depth. But the carved form is right, and everything that follows now is in service of a form that has already, in its bare wood, become exactly what it needed to be. He sets the piece down on the bench. He sits for a moment, simply looking at it. The late hour, the clock on the wall, an old one, its face yellowed. It's ticking the quiet, steady counterpoint to the workshop's other sounds. Shows 20 past 10. Later than Vaclav usually works. But the face required the full session, and he gave it the full session because this particular craft, like every other in this whole wide series of journeys, has taught him that the work takes what the work takes, and that imposing an arbitrary ending when something is nearly, but not yet right, serves no one, least of all the figure waiting to be fully found. He covers the piece with a soft cloth, the traditional protection against any dust or inadvertent contact through the night. He wipes his knife with a clean rag and sets it in its accustomed place. He tidies the shavings from the bench's surface into the small basket kept for them. He covers the hide glue pot's heat source. He checks the paint jars are properly sealed. He does these things slowly, with the particular care of someone performing a sequence they have performed so many times across so many years that it has become a kind of evening ritual rather than simply a practical sequence of tasks. The same care that Pieter brought to covering his bell mechanism's working parts, that Farouk brought to extinguishing his hammam's lanterns, that Pema brought to banking her hearth fire. The workshop is put to bed for the night. The workshop after Vaclav leaves. Vaclav climbs the step back up to street level, locks the iron-banded door behind him, and walks the 5 minutes home through the old streets of the city. The cobblestones underfoot the same ones he has walked across for 54 years, his feet knowing them as well as any part of this whole city. Behind the locked door, in the small below street level room, the puppets settle into their night quiet. The lamp has been extinguished, and the workshop is dark except for the faint, diffused light that filters, even at this hour, from the lane outside. A thin strip of amber at the bottom of the door. In this near darkness, the puppets on their shelves are barely distinguishable shapes. The king, the devil, the dozen Kashbergs of various sizes and vintages, the old man Jaroslav carved with the face of mild resignation on his particular small shelf, and the newly completed face resting under its protective cloth on the workbench. The strings hang still. No draft disturbs them. The door and windows, all properly secured against the cool Prague night. The strings hang straight, the figures resting in their own unperformed stillness, waiting in their patient wooden way for whatever occasions will eventually ask them to move and speak again. The old plays wait on their high shelf. The tools rest in their places, the shavings in their basket. The workshop holds, in its dark and quiet, the accumulated presence of everything that has ever been made within it. An accumulation not unlike the smoke absorption of Anton's forest hut, not unlike the incense absorption of Pema's Bhutanese altar room, not unlike the centuries of perfume absorption in Henry Belloc's workshop in Grasse, a space saturated with its own particular history, a space that smells and sounds and feels in any moment of quiet attention like exactly what it is, a place where things have been made, where things are being made, where things will continue to be made, as long as there is someone to make them. You are drifting. You are still in the workshop, in a sense, or somewhere very like it. The smell of linden shavings and old paint still present in the dark. The covered face on the workbench still finding its full form beneath its protective cloth. The puppets on their shelves resting in their patient, unhurried night. Vaclav is walking home through the old streets. Jaroslav's figure rests on its small shelf, its mild, amused expression unchanged by the darkness. The strings hang perfectly still. All of it here, all of it holding you. Your breathing has slowed to match the workshop's own deep, unhurried quiet. The kind of quiet that accumulates slowly across many years of serious, patient work being done in the same small room, until the room itself carries that quality the way old stone carries warmth, the way old bronze carries its color. This is what a puppet maker's workshop teaches, if you allow yourself to receive it, even only in imagination, even only for this one quiet hour before your own sleep arrives. That within the most specific, most apparently limiting constraints, a piece of wood, a knife, a face not yet found, genuine, fully realized, movingly alive expression can be released by patient, accumulated skill and patient, attentive care. That things made slowly, with full attention, can outlast the person who made them by centuries and carry their maker's intelligence forward into a future their maker could never have fully imagined. That carving a face slowly across an evening from a piece of linden wood is one of the most quietly extraordinary things a human being can do with an evening. You do not need to find any particular face tonight. You can simply rest the way the workshop rests, the way the new face rests under its cloth, the way all the patient wooden figures on their shelves rest, trusting that morning will come and work will resume, and the thing that is being slowly made will eventually, in its own good time, become itself. The last things, the workshop rests in the dark, below the old lane, beneath the amber lamplight of the iron bracket above the neighboring door. The new face rests under its cloth on the workbench. The tools rest in their accustomed places. The shavings rest in their basket. The strings hang perfectly still. The old plays rest on their high shelf. Jaroslav's figure rests on its small shelf in its usual corner, its expression unchanged, looking out at the dark workshop with the same mild, amused resignation it has always had. Vaclav is nearly home. The cobblestones of the lane receive his footsteps one final time and then fall silent. The door to his building clicks shut. The lane is quiet. The city settles, house by house, street by street, bridge by bridge. The great river moving steadily through the dark, below the old stone arches. Indifferent to whatever particular night, this is in the long chain of nights. This city has already accumulated and will continue to accumulate for as long as it stands. The puppets wait, as they have always waited, for whatever voice will come eventually to wake them. The workshop is dark. The lamp is out. The shavings are in their basket. The tools rest in their places. The new face rests under its cloth. Found finally this evening. The strings hang perfectly still. No draft to stir them. The old plays rest on their high shelf. Cashberg waits. The king waits. The devil waits. Jaroslav's figure waits on its small shelf, its expression unchanged, mild, amused, resigned, patient. Vaclav is home, his hands still carrying, in their particular calluses and stiffnesses, the memory of this evening's work. The new face will be painted tomorrow. It will be strung eventually. It will perform eventually in whatever story it was always going to perform in. But tonight it simply rests under its cloth. Found, you are held tonight too, by this same patient, accumulated craft, by the warmth and the smell of linden shavings in a dark, quiet room, by the knowledge that things can be slowly found, that patience, properly kept, eventually arrives somewhere real. You do not need to find anything tonight. You only need to rest, the way the new face rests. Found, waiting, you are safe. You are warm. You are held in the workshop, below the old lane, in the old city, beside the dark river. The strings will be still all night. The tools will wait. And you can simply rest. Good night, dear friend. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. Good night.